Welcome, once again, to Sky Bisons, Cabbages, and Honor. I am your host, Matthew, and here with me is my lovely co-host, the heir to the Melon Lord herself, Aubrey.
Aubrey! That's me!
Yes, that is you. Own your name. It is yours.
Definitely. Thank you.
All right. We are back again. Little housekeeping thing for today. We are going to be trying to introduce a little more structure to our discussions. We're not going to go over the structure right now. It'll hopefully just become apparent. I just wanted to let you know that ahead of time. And I think we're just going to dive right into it. All right.
Let's go.
All right. So today we will be discussing Avatar, The Last Airbender, Book 1, Episode 3, The Southern Air Temple. And doing the summary of the episode today will be Aubrey. All right.
Thank you. Aang wants to visit the air temple where he grew up. Katara and Sokka are reluctant to go. While they are visiting the air temple, Katara tries to hide the truth of what happened to the airbenders. Eventually, Aang ends up finding the skeleton of Monkey Yatso, his old friend, surrounded by dead firebenders, and he realizes that his people have been eradicated and he is the only one left. He goes into the Avatar state in grief and anger, which alerts the people of all the nations that the Avatar has returned. He is comforted by Katara and Sokka, letting him know that he is not alone. Meanwhile, Zuko and Uncle Iroh run into Commander Zhao, who finds out that the Avatar is alive and proceeds to take over the search, much to Zuko's dismay. Zuko challenges Zhao to an Agni Kai, which is a firebending duel, that he ends up winning. The episode ends with Avatar Aang flying off, looking at his old home.
I would also like to add that this saw the introduction of an incredibly important character, Momo.
Ooh.
The flying lemur. He's very important to the plot.
He is, actually.
Okay, so yes. That was episode 3. It seems like so long ago, but it's only episode 3.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel about it, Matthew?
I thought it was a good episode. The things I liked about it, first and foremost, Iroh was just great this episode in a variety of ways. One, he tried and was quite diplomatic when dealing with Zhao, which both lends to his experience just in general and, no knowledge about, play things cool, don't rise to anyone's provocations, but also his dealings probably with military officers.
Well, yeah,
because
he was a military officer.
Yes, exactly.
He was general.
If Zhao is indicated, or is a example of the kind of officers that are in the Fire Nation, very scheming and power-hungry, Iroh's probably, used to dealing with their kind.
Mm-hmm. And he's probably better off at his position now, considering...
Yeah, he doesn't have to deal with that kind of stuff anymore.
Yeah, considering how power-hungry Zhao is. Oh yeah, the Avatar's alive? Yeah, I'm definitely going to push over this 16-year-old boy, and then I'm going to, get the glory for myself.
It does raise a question to me, too. This is going slightly off on a tangent in the middle of our highlight section, but is Zuko a person non grata, if I'm using that expression correctly, to the Fire Nation right now? He has no authority beyond, here's this small crew that'll man your ship, a couple soldiers. They're the only people in the Fire Nation who have to listen to you. Because otherwise, where does Zhao get off doing this to the prince? He is in exile, yes, but...
Well, that's probably it. He's the exiled prince. He doesn't matter to the Fire Lord. I think there was a scene where he's basically if your father wanted you home, he would have had you back, Avatar or no.
That actually was one of the things I did want to bring up, that in this episode, Zhao, for all his very manipulative fakiness, fake politeness, he does bring up 2 good points. First off, is that if the Fire Lord actually wanted Zuko back, he probably would have called him home by now.
Mm-hmm.
Second, he points out that, and this is from the perspective of the Fire Nation, that the Avatar being a threat is too important to be left to some kind of quest a single prince was given.
Yeah, I see your point there.
I mean, practically. It's in a practical sense, yeah, you don't leave this to a single person. Like, we should direct the entire military to it.
Yeah. The thing is, though, like, 5 minutes before he realizes the Avatar has returned, he's essentially like, oh, it's just a fairy tale. Go on, Zuko.
Well, no, he's probably lying.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Like, Zhao is incredibly manipulative this entire episode. Every second word out of his mouth is a lie, I think, because he attempts, like, to get Zuko, like, when Zuko says, oh yeah, we don't know anything or something, and Zhao's like, Prince Zuko, if the Avatar is alive, it is a threat to your entire country. It is your duty, to tell me anything you could, even the smallest thing you might be able to tell me. He's like, oh, appealing to his patriotism. I'm like, oh, you manipulative piece of fire snake doo-doo.
Oh, yeah, he's awful, especially at the end of the Agni Kai, where he was like, I have been defeated by a 16-year-old boy. Time to attack him when his back is turned.
Yes. And, of course, Iroh's there like, nope. No, that's not going to happen, sir.
Oh, that was just beautiful how Iroh stopped him. Just,
Also, apparently, Iroh can, like, just flash step because he somehow got from the other side of the arena to behind Zuko in an instant to grab Zhao's foot and dispel the fire at the same time. It's like, yeah, no, this is done.
I think it's just telling of Iroh's skill.
Yes, Iroh is that wonderful character that he seems all goofy and he's like, a little overweight and everything, but he is not actually to be messed with when he gets serious.
Oh yeah.
He's very savvy. He was calm throughout the entire episode, really.
I do love that scene where something was knocked down. I think Zuko got angry, and then he was just like, more tea, please. Like, oh, that is quintessential Iroh.
He knows there's no point in getting upset. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I imagine it would be very easy to stereotype the Fire Nation as being very hot-headed and everything. But, you get to Iroh's age and level of experience, he knows there's a time and a place.
Mm-hmm. That's why I love him so much.
Yes. One thing, it was a very, very, very small thing, and I almost think I'm probably imagining it. At one point in the Agni Kai, Zhao does a particular move where he kind of puts his both hands down the ground and sweeps them aside or something. Mm-hmm. And it reminded me of one particular moment in the final duel in the last episode of the series with Zuko and Azula. That's something Zuko does. And I'm like, no, that wouldn't have been a callback to the first firebending fight in the show.
Maybe it's just something that they do.
Yeah, it might be a thing inherent to the style. Mm-hmm. I just thought, that's a funny little similarity.
I do like the, I guess, foreshadowing, where Uncle Iroh's like, remember the last time you went up against the Master, and they like zoom up on Zuko and his scar, and it's like, oh, who is this Master?
Yeah. Though, I hate the fact that they refer to Zhao as any kind of master.
That's true. He's kind of, compared to Zuko and Iroh, he's just kind of like okay compared to them.
Yeah, he's also just kind of a social climber too.
Oh yeah.
He's all obsessed about his own position, his own legend. It's all about him. Zuko is in a way sort of doing it for his own honor, but I suppose that could be seen as a more noble aspiration.
I think it's a more personal thing, but yeah. I guess from the outside, there people will be like, "Oh, he's trying to get his honor back," but it's obvious that Zuko just wants his approval from his daddy.
Yes. Also, I do like the very little bit we get of kind of Momo characterization in this episode, where he brings Sokka some food, then also later on steals a choice bit back for himself.
Oh, Momo's great. He is a great addition to that little Aang's familiar group here. Yeah,
the air nomad cultural emissaries.
They are adorable. Oh gosh, especially God, what's his name again? Appa. Sorry, Appa. Forgot my.
Both voiced by the same guy.
Really?
Both animals are voiced by Bradley D. Baker, I think. He does a lot of interesting voices for a lot of animated shows.
I'm guessing
He's a
more
marvel.
animals.
Yes, he's an amazing guy with a lot of interesting range.
I do like the scene with the Agni Kai where Iroh was just essentially being really supportive of Zuko, which I kind of feels it echoes the support that Sokka and Katara were giving Aang.
Yes. Starting the trend, I think, in this series of showing subtle parallels between Aang and Zuko's journey.
It is very similar. You know, they're both on the quest to sort of regain something that they've lost or like make up for something that they've done.
Yeah.
Which,
They both, I'm not sure, it's not stated as much with Aang, but there's an obligation to both of them. Like, Zuko feels like it's my duty to capture the Avatar, and Aang is like, it's my duty to save the world. And, you know,
So this scene where Aang realizes he's the last airbender, that got to me.
Yeah.
Just the idea that this 12-year-old boy is essentially like, I'm the last one of my people, and I have to make sure that this doesn't happen to anyone else. So he's angry, he's mourning, and, you know, when the Avatar is under distress, he tends to go into the Avatar state for some reason.
Yeah, that is interesting in a way, because they often describe the Avatar state as a defense mechanism. Like, that's how it sometimes activates completely unintentionally. Like, up till quite a ways into the series, I think Aang has a great deal of trouble activating it on command. Like, so it's a little different here, where it's just triggered by just stress and grief and intense emotion, because he's not under any kind of threat other than, you know, his own feelings.
Yeah.
So it's a little different than what how the Avatar state will manifest later in the series, I think.
Yeah, it seems to me, from what I've watched, later on, Avatars do learn how to control their own Avatar state.
Oh yeah, that's the point. Like, they're expected that when you're a fully realized Avatar, you can just turn on the Avatar state like a light switch, like you see in one of the flashbacks in Korra when Aang does it as an adult. He can command it to happen. But at this point, it's just kind of an involuntary reflex thing. Like, oh, all the Avatars feeling stressed, better pump in some mystic power.
And he is a 12-year-old boy, and they tend to be emotional.
Yes, well,
all 12-year-old boys
all
are.
12-year-olds, I would say, across both genders, can be very emotional.
Well, that's not what I meant. I wasn't trying to pinpoint that only 12-year-old boys are emotional. But yes, anyone around that age, teenagers, tend to get emotional.
Yeah, another thing I liked about this episode was kind of stressing again the kind of contrast between Katara and Sokka, where Sokka is a very practical voice and Katara is a more emotional one, where Sokka is like, he's going to find out eventually that this tragedy has happened. It's not helping anyone to shield him from this truth. And that's a very kind of long view perspective. But Katara is like, this is going to... She's probably thinking that she doesn't actually vocalize this, but this is going to be a very painful revelation for Aang. But he's enjoying himself now. He's showing off his culture. He's, you know, seeing these places that he loves. Let him be this happy for this moment as long as we can stretch this out, because the truth is coming. It is inevitable, and it will be painful. Let him have this while he still can.
Well, yeah, she's the mother of the group.
She's the emotional side of the argument versus the practical. And I'm not saying either of them are wrong or right, but it's interesting the two different viewpoints. Sokka is a very practical kind of guy. Especially also stressing that his desire, like, he's hungry the whole episode, and they just kind of ignore him, which is like kind of unfair. Like, guys, he needs to eat.
And this eventually becomes his character trait. Like, he's the hungry character. But it's something that I've never really, like, registered while I was watching it the first time around. I was like, oh, he is hungry all the time, isn't he?
Well, as the non-bender, he has to physically exert himself to do the sorts of things they can do much easier with just bending.
Well, that's fair. That's fair.
He needs more fuel.
I like how more of the lore is introduced, like the Avatar cycle. which I thought was neat.
They sort of referenced that in a previous episode where Katara was laying out the framework of how the series is going to work in terms of learning the elements. But yeah, they've specifically said now that this has been happening for a long time. There have been a lot of previous avatars.
I like the part where Aang went in front of the Roku statue and he's like, I know this one.
Yeah, I know his name. But that's not written on the statue, Aang. How did you know that? Interrogating him.
So it was kind of the sort of introduction of Roku, kind of.
Yes, who becomes an important character.
For someone who is dead.
Yes. But are any of the avatars truly dead, really?
I guess not. As you can tell with that scene where he like goes into the avatar state and all those temples light up from
the statues.
From all the the statues,
wait, yes.
And then the temples.
Yeah, I did want to talk about that actually because we meet the fire sages later on because they go to the fire temple because that was like sort of Roku's pad when he was alive in a way.
Yeah, like that's where he slept, of course.
Wow, he probably associated there because it's like the home base for the Avatar in that particular nation, and he was a Fire Nation citizen.
Yeah,
but I did not remember this at all. Now watching these episodes again, that they show a Water Nation temple, and an Earth Nation temple.
Yeah, and they have their own sages.
I'm like, there are Earth and Water sages? There's never a reference to them ever again, is there?
Not really, but I do like that they show them for like the one moment, so you know that there are sages in every nation.
Except the Air Nation.
Aw, sad.
I guess, I don't know, maybe that room would have been where the Air Nomad sages would have been if they were still alive.
But that scene definitely gave me chills because it was like that, the Messiah returns moment, and everyone's like, oh, holy smokes. And depending on the nation, it will evoke different feelings for them. For the Fire Nation, it's probably like, oh crap, our plans of trying to take over the world might be ruined here. Let's go inform the Fire Lord. Though I am wondering at that moment, what do the Fire Sages feel there? It's like, do we want to maintain balance and tell the Fire Lord this, or what do we do?
Again, reaching further in the series, we know that the Fire Sages have been kind of co-opted by the Fire Lord and his successors. Like, there's just the one Fire Sage who tries to help Aang later on. So they're probably like, oh boy, this is not going to be good.
Yeah.
So, another little bit of world building that isn't as relevant as the Avatar cycle is the Agni Kai. It just comes up a few times, critically in Zuko's backstory.
It is kind of a neat idea. I'm not quite too sure on the details. They challenge each other to an Agni Kai. Now, is it to submission or to the death?
Probably to submission or death. You know, typical kind of honor duel kind of stuff. It's just, again, another thing ramming the kind of the warrior culture of the Fire Nation home.
I do like the name of it, Agni Kai. I'm not sure what it means, but it's beautiful.
Sounds appropriately mystical or kind of other cultural.
Yeah.
God, they just didn't call it something with fire in the name.
Fire duel.
Yeah,
Duel.
Yeah, that doesn't sound great, does it? It's got to have its own name. Let's see. Do we have any other highlights, or do we want to move on to our other thoughts?
I like Momo.
Yeah,
that's cute.
Momo's a cute little addition, and it's nice. He is both enjoyable for everyone in the show, but it's again probably another fun little thing, especially introduced for younger audiences, because younger audiences, I'm sure, would get a kick out of the cute little animal that just does animal things sometimes.
Yeah, alright. Yeah, I'm good. Let's move on to our overall thoughts of the episode. That's okay.
Sure, though there is one thing I did want to bring up. Something like, okay, two actually. One, they mentioned that Aang was informed that he was the Avatar earlier than what was traditional.
Ah, yes.
And I wonder why that is. Like, is it just a story thing so they can...
Because of the war. The war was coming, and they had to inform him.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh.
that's what they mentioned. The war is coming, and there's a war coming, and we have to tell you earlier because of this.
Is that in another episode?
I believe that's in this episode.
Well, no, because Monk Gyatso is the only one who talks to Aang in the flashback, and I don't think he brings that up at all.
Okay, I'm not 100% sure then, but I think that's what happened in another episode or this one. Yeah. Oh, Monk Gyatso. They introduce him.
Yes. Who... This is related to the second thing I was going to bring up, provides an interesting connective tissue because we learn later that he and Roku were friends. Monk Gyatso was like Aang age when they met, but he was kind of his airbending teacher in a way.
Friendship.
And then Gyatso gets to teach Aang.
I think that's sweet.
I always like the idea that someone has a long enough life that they meet the reincarnation of their friend from the previous avatar.
That is kind of beautiful. I think they do it later on in Legend of Korra.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of that in Legend of Korra. It's really nice, and we could talk a lot about that, but that's for a later time.
Mm-hmm.
One last thing. How did Gyatso kill the firebenders? There were a lot of firebenders there.
I don't know. Use your imagination. I'm guessing he just released a burst of air and just killed them all.
I don't think that's how air works.
I'm making this up.
I like to imagine that he just somehow sucked all the air out of the entire room and had killed everyone in the room.
Oh, that would be smart too.
Yeah, possibly also something to do with like fire and updrafts and stuff. But I'm not the expert on how fire works.
You know, I like how they established his friendship with Gyatso because it kind of shows. They also show that he is not also close to the other monks, or was also close to the other monks with the whole throwing cakes on top of them.
That they're kind of a pair.
Yeah.
That even within the air nomads, Aang was a bit of a jokester, and like you see Aang and the cute way he acts and his fun-loving personality. Not the first thing you would think of when you think of a monk.
That is so cute, though.
Yeah,
I like the little technique they did with the airbending with the frosting on the cake.
Yeah, and also that was they didn't give that setup away right away. You thought, oh, he's helping him bake cakes, and then like, oh yeah, we made these cakes to throw at people.
That's a waste. These are monks. You think they'd be more mindful of their food?
Yes, especially since, by the looks of it, it would be a bit of an effort to get food up there. I'm like, did they farm themselves? Like,
they use their sky bison somehow.
Yes, but like, where do they get their food? Do airbenders have any sort of industry? Like, do they trade things?
No, they were just monks. They were nomads.
I guess
they had no standing army, according to Aang in a later episode.
Yes, they were very peaceful. I don't know. I this is again my world bust, my wanting to poke at the world building. Like, hey, what was the air nomads' relation to the other nations? Did they trade? If they did, what goods do they export?
I'm guessing
knowledge.
I'm guessing they would be to something like the Fire Nation what Tibet would be to Germany. It's like, sure, it's there, but like I'm sure most Germans don't really think of Tibetans, and I'm guessing most Fire Nation people didn't really think of air nomads all that much. That's what I'm thinking.
I'm not quite sure what you mean.
Yeah, I'm guessing.
I'm talking like, what kind of, like, if you go into like, oh, welcome to my shop that might be in the Earth Nation. We have this thing fresh, like we got these imports from the air nomads. What would be there? What goods would you buy that would come from the air nomads?
Oh, probably necklaces and stuff like that.
Ah, yeah. Like, this is an air nomad robe.
Yeah, things like
made
that.
from sky bison wool. I sold it to them in exchange for some spices. Because there are certain refined goods, I'm sure, that the air nomads can't make because they're nomads. They don't have any industry.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah, but enough about possible industrial relations between fictional nations. Moving on. Overall thoughts.
I really liked this episode because it was a good way to, I guess, start the overall, the overarching plot, and it expanded on the lore a bit, which I liked.
In small, subtle ways.
Oh, and it introduced Zhao, who
Yes, it did.
is the villain of this particular section of the series.
It is interesting in that now we have two antagonists who are actually against each other, too.
Yay!
Which is not something you see in a lot of shows.
It was a good way to sort of make Zuko more, I guess, relatable, and to like soften your view towards him. It's like, oh, he's kind of being mean to that 16-year-old boy. Poor Zuko.
Yeah, who is exiled and has been permanently disfigured, possibly by his own family member. Yeah. It is certainly trying. They're trying to early on make Zuko at least sympathetic, if not, we're not going to root for him necessarily, but you're not going to cheer every time he gets his butt whooped.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, Zuko, you got enough problems in your life.
Yeah, he's kind of the punching bag.
A little bit. But it'll also make it feel real good when Zhao gets his comeuppance every now and then. You're not meant to like Zhao.
No, he's kind of... I wouldn't say he's one-dimensional, but he is just evil. He's just a jerk.
He is... though, from the perspective of the Fire Nation, he is probably very loyal, but he is also on the underneath very self-serving. I don't think he necessarily believes what the Fire Nation does is in any way righteous. That probably doesn't enter into it. He sees it as this is a war. I can get ahead by being good and useful in this war. I can gain power. He's a social climber, as I said, who can shoot fireballs.
Yeah, that's kind of a scary thing. Social climbers with magical powers.
Yeah, who are willing to kill people.
That's never good,
No.
especially 16-year-old boys or 12-year-old boys as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he would have actually killed Zuko. He might have just, possibly burned him or humiliated him. That seems like something more he would do. He probably thought he could, frighten Zuko into abandoning the quest altogether. Not that he actually probably thinks of Zuko as a threat. Which he might now. But
oh, yeah, with Iroh by his side.
Well, I'm curious. He does show kind of respect and deference towards Iroh, like even beyond this episode. But I just wonder how much of that is genuine.
So it's Zhao. He's probably not genuine at all.
It's another means to an end. Trying to manipulate. Anyway.
How do you feel about the episode?
I think it was quite good. I think it's also as important in this episode to solidify for Aang the stakes of all of this. That he can't just, run and go home now, for one thing. He has no home left, and now Katara and Sokka are his family. And his duty, to be the Avatar and save the world, is all he has left. And not being there and not being the Avatar caused this, possibly. But that'll probably be addressed later.
Oh yeah, the guilt he feels over running away, which led to all of that.
Yeah,
to
many
the
things.
War, the death of his
Though,
people.
to be fair, considering how complete the destruction of the Air Nation was, if Aang had been there, he probably would have died too.
Yeah.
Unless the Avatar stayed, but I gotta think considering they expected the Avatar to be there, the Fire Nation probably went in with overwhelming force. And considering no airbenders escaped, despite the fact that they can fly, probably meant that they probably attacked very hard and very fast. They probably caught them completely off guard. Because none of them escaped, which is crazy. They could fly.
If one believes in destiny, one could say that him running away was probably better for the world than...
In a roundabout way, yeah.
Than if he were to stay.
Yeah.
He might have gotten killed, and then...
And then they would have had to contend with...
the waterbender
Avatar. Which would have possibly, in their mind, would have probably at least postponed the Avatar getting involved. Because, a 5-year-old Avatar is no threat.
No.
Plus, for one thing, it's probably easier to attack the Water Nation.
Yeah. The Fire Nation would... Against the Water Nation?
Though, to be fair, in all this time, they still hadn't conquered the North Pole.
That's true. That's true. I would argue they didn't even conquer the South Pole. They just kind of like messed it up a bit.
It's not really a threat. Like, there's a few scattered villages. The men are all fighting, the extent of which we never see, so we have to assume that it's not of any consequence.
Yeah, it seems like the Fire Nation's biggest threat has always been the Earth Nation in terms of
it is the
of
biggest
the other nations.
And probably has the largest military, and especially considering, one, the Air Nomads had no military. And yeah, that's the biggest impact the Fire Nation has had in the war so far. I think they wiped out the Air Nomads. They took out an entire nation. Beyond that, they've conquered a whole bunch of Earth Nation territory, but not the capital.
Not Ba Sing Se.
No. There is no war in Ba Sing Se. And on that slightly creepy note, for this episode, how many mummified monks would you give it out of 5?
Definitely 6.
That's fair. I would give it 4.5.
All right.
Just mostly on account of just Aang possibly being a little slow on the uptake. He's like, oh, I'm going to not assume anything bad happened despite walking around this whole temple and not seeing another living soul.
Well, earlier in the episode, he kind of assumed, well, maybe they ran away. I know my friends; they would have escaped. He was very hopeful.
But he never, up until he found Gyatso, his mood didn't seem to be damaged in the slightly. There was no like, oh, this is looking bad.
It could have just been denial. Now that I'm thinking about it.
Anyway, I give it a 4.5 out of 5, and Aubrey, with your 6 out of 5. That's perfectly fine because we don't care about math here.
Boo math.
Boo math. Math ain't gonna fix me a drink.
No.
But I'm going to. And with that note, that ends our review of episode 3. Thank you for tuning in and to listen to Sky Bison's Cabbages in Honor. We hope you come back for the next episode when we will be reviewing episode 4.
Bye.